Hello, everyone. This is Ernie Humphrey, the CEO of Treasury Webinars. I would like to welcome everyone to our webinar today, Building and Leveraging Your Professional Brand to Own Your Career, a topic that is near and dear to my heart. And I'm thrilled to have today as our featured speaker, Mike Richards, who's the CEO and founder of the Treasury Recruitment Company. What I can tell you is if I was looking for a job in Treasury, or if my son was looking for a job in the Treasury, there would be no hesitation. I would call Mike Richards. So, Mike, why don't you give us a little bit about your background and what you do at the Treasury Recruitment Company?
Thank you, Ernie, for that amazing, energetic intro as always. So I've been in Treasury Recruitment 20 plus years. Originally started the Treasury Division for a company called Robert Walters many years ago. Joined a search firm, and then back in 2002, I thought, why am I doing it for everybody else? So I set up the Treasury Recruitment Company. We recruit on a global basis, from treasury analyst to group global treasurer, and literally globally. So right the way across the US, UK and Europe, and across into Asia Pacific. We've done it for many years. That's my little, less of a sales pitch, but just to explain to you guys why Ernie's invited me on here. So hopefully I can tell you guys about what you need to do about your personal brand. Is that enough?
Oh, yes, sir. Of course. Yeah. Thanks, Mike. And as you can tell, Mike and I know each other. So we're going to make this a little bit more conversational.
Yeah.
We're going to make this entertaining because everyone's tired of Zoom meetings and
Ugh.
all that good stuff. So we're going to have a little bit of fun. Got to do my little intro here at Treasury Webinars. Really, what we're trying to do is we're trying to empower the career success of everyone, right? Make you more valuable to your companies. And we only do what we do best, which is virtual events, webinars, and of course, this past September, we delivered the first full-blown virtual conference, and we'll be doing that again in September. And if we're lucky, Mike will join us again.
Yeah.
So just a few housekeeping items. Anyone that might be interested in receiving CTP credits, we're going to go ahead on the back end and put some polling questions here. You have to answer the polling questions and remain on. I guarantee you're going to want more even when Mike and I are done. So I don't have any doubts. Just stay on. If you have any questions regarding CTP credit, just send an email to Ernie@treasurywebinars.com. Again, that's Ernie@treasurywebinars.com. Again, when Mike and I are done, we are going to launch a really short survey, as we always strive to improve the ROI we give our event attendees, which is more important than ever because everyone thinks they know how to do virtual events. Do they really? Absolutely not. All right, so here's our agenda. So first of all, we're going to start right by the building blocks. We're going to talk about how to build your brand at work. And most people don't think about this. And so I tried to look back and I tried to do something unique. And so you're always on, your brand is always on display. I forgot to mention, my brand is always on display. Look at my jacket, right? Everybody knows my brand, and that's my brand, right? That's who I am. I stand out in the crowd. I do stand-up comedy. And so that's part of my brand. And so that's really important. And you have to be authentic, right? So your brand is not going to be an obnoxious jacket, but you need to be who you are, right? And lead with your best stuff all the time. And your brand is always on at work, right? With your business partners at work, your internal customers, within Treasury, beyond Treasury, but then with your professional peers, right? And that's extremely important for your career success. If you want to take ownership of your career, you have to have a great network within work, with your business partners, and with your careers, with your professional peers. And what I tell people is my nirvana is when I'm not looking for a job and people reach out to me and they offer me opportunities. And I'm thrilled to say that that's still happening. And I'm very fortunate. But if that's not happening, then you need to try a little bit harder. And Mike and I are going to help you do that. But really, as you build your brand, in order to empower your brand, you really have to have what I call the foundation, right? You have to have the skill set and be mindful of that. And Mike is going to take us through an amazing framework that he has to assess the skills you want, the skills you need. Then we'll talk about a little bit about your, what I call your professional value proposition. And that needs to be reflected in your resume, your LinkedIn profile. So I often talk at my alma mater, Pears University, to folks going through the process. And I tell them, we start doing a mock interview and I say, okay, time out, interview over. Here's what we're going to do. What's your professional value proposition? And they look at me and I'm like, okay, we're going to do it right now. Okay, 3 to 5 minutes. When I call your references, what are they going to say about you? What are the 3 things they're going to say about you? And then I say, that's your value proposition. So what is it? I have a passion for learning, right? I do this. So how do we reflect that in your resume? When you talk to me, I should be getting that from you. So that's really your value proposition. And then Mike will probably take the lead here with your resume. I hate resumes. Well, I hope they go away someday, but they're not. Or the CV, as our mates across the pond call it, the CV. But I was hoping LinkedIn would do away with that, but I don't think that's going to happen. But the good news is we're going to talk about LinkedIn, and Mike and I are both extremely versed and been really speaking about LinkedIn profiles for probably 10 years or so. And then we'll talk about your network, and I'll try and let Mike get a word in here pretty soon, but he knows better. So let's talk about how to assess your skill set, and I'll let Mike drive us through the Treasury skills wheel. So Mike, why don't you go ahead and take the floor for us now?
Thank you, Ernie. Yeah, it's amazing to get a word in edgeways with Ernie
I
talking, but
know.
he's giving you some great value, guys. So that's the good thing. It's like, it's actual real stuff. So, well, firstly, you're going to see in a moment the Treasury Skills Wheel. And what this is, I was speaking in Chicago where seeing Ernie, and we caught up there. But one of the things we were basing my speak to them. But what we wanted to do for the Chicago conference was come up with a really sort of a definitive list, if you like, of what makes success. So actually, we went back over at that stage. I think I'd done 70 podcasts by that stage. Went back through, well, my colleague, bless her, went back through all of the different areas and all the different segments that were important about success. And what did they say? You know, some treasurers were saying it was about studying, and that was one of the key things. So that's obviously the hard skills areas. Another one, Mark from Johnson Controls, he was saying, right, travel the world, you know, just do this, have an open mindset and everything else. And if you go on to the next bit, I think we actually show the big skills wheel. Now, this again is available for you guys to look, but at the center of that, it's quite an easy, you know, understandable, if you like. It's about qualification. It's about some of your experiences. One of the key things, this is what we actually got from a lot of the clients, but actually you guys can use this. So actually, when you do the Treasury Skills Wheel, it's a practical tool. So you can print this off from our website and then plot on that, you know, that circle, if you like, the skills wheel, exactly where you stand. You know, have you done all of your CTP? Have you done an MBA? Great, then you're going to be very experienced in the qualifications area. If you haven't done those, you need to think about them, because that's going to be what is going to make you stand up over others. On the softer side, we've got things like, you know, communication, propensity to learn. You know, this is one of the things. When I was giving the speech in Chicago, I stopped halfway through and we were just talking about this. And I was saying that communication, building this. And I said, do you know what, guys? I hate public speaking. And I, yeah, right. I was like, no, I don't enjoy it. But what I realized about 10 years ago was that if we were going to expand as a business, I needed to get up on that stage and force myself out of the comfort zone. And that applies to you Treasury professionals, that you need to be volunteering to go to a conference and actually speak. You know, just do a session, maybe start out with a panel session, get yourself more comfortable. I interviewed a treasurer just yesterday, and he actually said inside he was incredibly nervous, but he was doing the podcast with me because he said, it gets me out of the comfort zone. It means when I talk to my CFO, I'm more confident. And that's really the area you need to focus on. Ernie, I mean, what are your thoughts on that? And, you know, you've seen this from so many treasury professionals.
Yeah, I think this is an amazing tool because a lot of people, I think they're just intimidated, right? They don't know where to start. They don't know what to do. And I would also encourage those who are managing treasury teams to use this as well and assess your team and have it be interactive, right? And maybe do that 360. So you think you're here, right? Why don't you ask your boss to do this for you, right? I would. Let's be brave. Right. I'm trying to make sure that I've got the right skills and then make sure that those are a fit. And then as you identify places you might have gaps, you have to proactively go out. Right. I might have to ask my boss, like Mike said, let's go speak at a conference. But Mike, I want to ask you this question.
Go.
So as COVID has kind of hit, right, the last 6 months or so, how would you see these things? Have the priorities changed on the skills wheel, or how have you helped people kind of adapt a little bit as this world has changed especially in the recruiting area without the face-to-face interactions?
Well, let's just go through a few of those.
Yeah.
You know, technically, can you actually improve yourself while you're sitting at home at COVID? Yeah, of course you can. There's online learning, there's all these different
Right.
areas. Going on webinars like this, actually committing to this, you get CTP credits for this. So actually join in with some of this one and some of the other ones he's done. It's not just a sales pitch for what Ernie's doing, but it's brilliant because it's actually there, easily accessible for you to commit to. Qualifications the same. Project management, obviously that's been a challenge, but I've just heard of someone who implemented a full treasury management system remotely. He's actually gone through as a treasurer from scratch actually to getting it switched on. It's pretty amazing. So the stuff like that. Now the outer softer skills, that's a lot harder, and I think that's where a lot of people have lost out. I talk about treasury analysts and managers.
Right.
Someone said to me, and I think it's just such a stupid comment. They said, "Oh, well, on Zoom, everyone's window is the same size, so everyone's got an equal voice." That's not true, because a treasury analyst, yeah, they might have the same amount of face time with the treasurer, but have they got the same amount to contribute? No, of course they haven't, because they're still learning your craft. You're still developing your careers, and you're building, as it says, relationship building. Your risk tolerance. You can still, propensity to learn. You can still dive into that stuff. So yeah, COVID has given it a knock sideways, but we're coming out of it. The vaccine was just announced the past few days. I think coming out of this, yeah, the world's going to be different. But I think the key thing is that people still want to develop. And I
Right.
think that's going to happen as well. There you go. Skills assessment, use it now. Actually, there's one thing I was going to say here, just to add on it. You can use this for your team. So if you're a treasurer now and you're watching this, or you're senior treasury professional, you don't just have to do it for yourself. You can actually use it as a tool to assess the rest of your team. And you might be looking at your senior treasury analyst and you may be thinking, oh, actually, which areas do they need to develop? And it might be they need to work on their communication skills. It might be they've got, qualifications coming out of their, coming out of their pockets, he says. They might be really, really good, but there are other softer areas they need to develop. There might be someone who's great in person, but they need to probably commit to doing the CTP or the AMCT or other qualifications are available. But you can use that as a treasurer to assess your gaps in your team and build that up, if you like, because as you look at the 4, 5, 10 people that might be in your team, you're going to have a blend of skills. But what you need to do is plan for what if one of those guys leaves, what bits are you going to miss? And that's where we say here, individual assessment, part of a formal review. Well, you can use it. It's a toolkit for you, if you like, as a treasurer. So.
Right. Yeah. Thanks, Mike. I mean, I think what I was challenged with, and I think what people's are, is we have all these annual reviews, right? And they're almost always a waste of time. And so that's a company culture, right? But now, having an actual tool, like the tool that you offer and other tools that you offer are incredibly powerful. You're actually getting something out of it. And so it's not just a BS thing. I want to get better at analysis. Well, what the heck, what does that mean, right? What are you going to do about it, right? I want to go from A to B. How do I get there? And then, as you mentioned, your team dynamics, right? And you should empower your team to cross train each other, right? And build your team so they can teach you something. So you want everybody on your team up to a level, not expert, but pretty knowledgeable. And then that way, when someone does leave, then it's not going to be such a hit to your team. But that takes the right environment, right? People can't be hoarding their skills. The treasurer can't fear someone taking a job, and everyone needs to realize that we're only as strong as our weakest link, and the better we all are, the more value that treasury gets and the more opportunities that we have.
And also to add to that as well, this skills wheel, we didn't just create it, as some idea of, oh, let's put a skills wheel together for a session and, pretend and everything else. This was from interviews with 70 treasurers. These are people, Sarah Jane Hall, the global treasurer at GlaxoSmithKline, Mark Van Diepenbeck for the global treasurer, Johnson Controls, amazing people at the top of their game. And they told us what it was taken them and what they felt other people should do to get to that role. So it's actually a career path for success. And that's what came out of it, if you like.
All right. So let's go ahead and switch gears a little bit.
Okay.
And I can't believe I'm going to do this. Let Mike lead even. He's probably and so he might have to knock himself a little bit, make sure he's awake. So, Mike, why don't you go ahead and I mean, you have been doing this a long time, and this is where we all struggle. I think we're all afraid of the resume, right? I think we have a little. So hopefully, you can make us less afraid of the resume and run us through some advice for that to really project ourselves in the best manner.
No problem at all. So, well, going back to a point Ernie made, are they going to die out? No, they're not. Are they going to change? Yes, and they are changing radically. Have they changed loads in recent years? Not really, not as much as they probably should have. When you've got it, and I'm not just going to reread off this, you want a strong resume. You want it to tell the story of you. And what you want it to do is you may want to make it an interesting story. You don't want to make it War and Peace. That's already been written. It's a little bit long. You don't want to see one of those. There's nothing worse than a 16-page resume. My colleague Simon actually mentioned recently, he got one and it arrived, and this guy who's only been in Treasury like 10 years had like 12 pages. And he was like, hang on, no, I'll read 3. Now, so make it summarize, keep it 2 or 3 page document. It's exactly as it says here. It's the first stage of convincing an employer you're the person for the job. Now, one of the key things I would say is don't just list everything you do. It is not a list of your responsibilities. If I just read another one that says, I do cash management, I do foreign exchange, I do this. No, really? Well, what a surprise. You're in Treasury, yeah? What we want to do is I want to see what you've achieved. What have you done to take your Treasury function from here across to here? What have you, how have you improved it? I mean, we've got some other bits. We'll go through here. Let's do resume length. Yeah, 1 or 2 pages. I've seen 3 pages. I've seen great 1 pages. I've seen terrible 1 pages. It's how long does it take to tell your story? How many achievements have you got in there? We talk about this, the resume summary paragraph. If I was trying to help a friend recently. He's not in Treasury, but everything else. But he did have one of the worst summaries at the top of it, and he was a flexible, motivated individual. And I said to him, I said, mate, what are you going to do? He said, right there, inflexible, demotivated old fart who's never going to do anything. And he was like, well, no. I said, they're empty words. And I said before, sometimes people call it a personal statement. Personal statements are worthless. If you're just going to sit there and say you're a motivated Treasury professional who's keen on learning, why? Now, 50% of the people that I know think they're okay and they'll put up with them and they're a bit of waste of space. 50% of the people hate them. So basically, you're starting out by flipping a coin and saying, oh, they could 50% hate me. Well done. So chuck it in the bin, basically, or in the garbage, in the trash can, sorry, for international viewers. What I'm talking about is in your resume summary paragraph, make it something to be their paracetamol. So I, again, recently did a bit of a review with a guy who had applied for 115 vacancies. Wow. And I was like, what is going wrong? And I picked out what he'd been doing. And he was just firing his resume for everything. And I picked out the last 5 or 6 jobs that I'd seen that he'd applied for. And there was one in particular. He works in pharmaceuticals, biotech and things. And this was a retail group, but actually they had a lot of crossover with that. They just bought a couple of companies. They were just expanding into the international arena. I said, look at this job. Why haven't they hired from within? What do you have that they are, and the thing was, they were just going to start to do more international cash. They mainly done domestic. They were going to move to international cash. I said, right, which international cash have you got? And he was like, oh, well, I've done this. I said, right, it's buried down in your resume at the bottom of page 1. I said, get that front and center, put it up. What have you done? How many members of the team have you managed? Because again, that was going to be a thing. And let's do it. With a bit of advice, out of these, he got to the final round interviews between him and one other. Unfortunately, didn't get it. We're still working with him. But actually, it's exactly as it says here, be the paracetamol. Think about what their headache is going to be for a job you're applying for and put it in there. That's the key thing. Employment history. It can go back 10 or 15 years, but the further back you go, the less information I want to know. I just want to know that, I want to see a career path. How have you made the steps? But the last 2 or 3 roles, that's where I want to see things. And again, this friend of mine, it was an interesting one. I said, look, bullets in a gun. He said, what? I said, it's, an old thing from publishing and stuff like that, 5 or 6 bullet points. That's it. And that's on the most recent. I said, as you go further down, I want 1 or 2. That's it. Keep it down, show people. And it's, if you like, it's also hooks for an interview. When someone's wanting to interview you, it's something, tell me about this bit of your employment. Tell me about this. And again, we've got achievements. You've got your qualifications. So people want to know about that if you're actually qualified for the role. Yeah, list some of the IT skills. It says here, actually, Microsoft, Word and Excel. I'd get rid of those, actually. We should have updated that a little bit, because if you haven't got Word and Excel, you shouldn't be in Treasury, because people can type, right? And Excel, pretty much people can use that. I think what's more important is, say, some of the treasury management systems to show how you've got references. Don't bother. Everyone knows you're going to have references, and hopefully they're going to say positive things. I mean, with resumes, Ernie, what have you seen, or any? I know that you hate them, but you're not looking for a job, so it's all right.
You know what, Mike? I really, I don't have much to say because I have a despise for resumes. But I'm going to ask you. I think a really, really important thing that you said was you got to avoid things on your resume that are going to get you immediately tossed to the trash can, right?
Yeah.
So this put you on the spot. You're not surprised. What are, can you just give us 3 things that are going to get your resume thrown in the trash, thrown in the trash can?
I think first of all, going back to that personal statement, right. I think that's such a big thing that, now if it's not tailored to someone, it goes in the trash. Because why bother? If you've not made the time and it's just a pre-manufactured resume, that's again another one, for this job or anything else.
Right.
But people have said to me, should I have a cover letter? I actually like the idea of a cover letter, so you can keep your resume slightly more generic, if you like. But again, a cover letter should not just be, a re-quoting of some of the things you've done. What it should be is a tailored, doesn't take long, look at what the pain points are for a client, and then do the cover letter. What other things have I seen that I've hated? When it's just irrelevant, when it's just so much detail, when it's just, you're making it hard for someone. You need to make it really easy for someone to buy you. This is a sales document, remember, as well. And I think, there's the basic stuff. Don't have fancy fonts. Don't do lots of logos. The odd logo here and there, used to be quite good, and I quite liked it, but then I've seen an absolute travesty. I saw one recently, which I just thought was the worst. And this guy did his triangle of experience. And it was just really? It's bad enough we have to read these things, but make it relevant, make it easy for them, the client or the audience you're giving it, to say yes. Don't make it easy for them to say no. Don't do a triangle of your experience. Doesn't work. Yeah, right. Fancy fonts, loads of colors, loads of distractions. Right. Try and keep it a business document. That's the main thing.
Yeah, I guess my comment would be that for me, when I've painfully done that, I try and make my resume as short as possible.
Yes,
I keep taking stuff off, and I'm like, boy, that's really good, but I'm like, that doesn't matter. So I tried to get mine. I try and get mine to 1 page, right? Even though I like to talk a lot, I have to, if I can get it to 1 page, and I can if you can convey your story in 1 page, that says a lot to an employer.
It does.
You know what your value is. You know what my pain points are. You can communicate with impact. Boom. That's it. Yeah. And that's a selling point.
But some of the audience, maybe today might be listening, and they're treasurers with 25 years experience. Right. And at the end of the day, it probably takes more than a page. So go on more than a page. Don't be limited by it, but keep it relevant all the way through.
All right, now we're gonna switch to my favorite and yours too.
Yeah.
The LinkedIn profile. I think I've been talking about this for the last maybe 10 years or more. So I've invested a lot of time in my profile and using LinkedIn. But this has really been driving my career success. I mean, I've invested a lot, and it's your online resume. This is your organic resume. I mean, everyone sees, look on LinkedIn, how many people are you connected to, or second degree connections? You don't have to be directly connected to, like when I first started out, I was connected to like 500 people, but everyone that could see, CERT groups, it was 1 million or something people. So you got to think about that, right? There's millions of people looking at this. What am I saying? What do they think about me? right? And that's also an opportunity, can also be bad, right? If you don't do it the
Mm.
right way.
Yeah, yeah.
And so like, well, in theory, right, it's a professional networking site. I don't know if it still is, but for me, it's getting a little bit more to be a job site. And to me, this is what it is. It's a sales tool for your brand. This is another session, professional development. It's still really, really good for that. But I mean, I can't emphasize enough. You'll get way more out of it than you put into it, right? So you'll get
Mm.
organic outreach, and especially once you get your network going, you'll get a bunch of organic requests. I mean, I've got requests from people to be connected, and I'm like, wow, this is a pretty important person. So your brand matters, and it has a tremendous impact. And again, you want to organically be pushing out your value. And it's really kind of enlightening when you see that you can communicate your value without saying a word. And Mike would
Yeah.
be like, God, I wish you would never say a word, right, to me. But he knows that's not going to happen.
But I
And
said,
so,
this Jeff Bezos,
yeah,
I actually think it gets more than this as well. This is your LinkedIn profile is your presentation of your brand, and it's the people. He said here what other people say about you when you're not in the room. I don't think it's just that. I think it's what they also think about you when you've
right,
walked out. When you're not in the room, they've seen your LinkedIn profile and they say, "Oh God, that guy's really good." If you have an empty profile with no photo or the grayed out photo, make sure you go into privacy settings so everybody can see your photo. Why? Because you're 30 times plus more likely to make a connection. And people, just there touching on what Ernie said, you know, say you've got a network of 50 people. How many opportunities are going to come knocking at your door? Probably not very many. If you're looking, and it's, as we say about professional networking, one of the key things there, say you as a treasury professional, you want to look at a new treasury management system. You go to your network of 50 people. Hi guys, have you used this TMS? No, never used it. No, or one or two, not sure, blah, blah, blah. You're like, oh, hang on. You go to your network of 500 and you ask those guys, wow, it's amazing. It's a really much better way of doing things, which is, and you can get much more feedback and it's powerful, more opportunities and everything else. Wouldn't you say, Ernie?
oh yeah, and I think it really, to me, for me personally, it's really empowered me to take control of my career. And so I think that's incredibly important. As you mentioned, just the resources that you have, and people are really welcoming, right? If you have a reason for reaching out, if you ask a question, and there's so many ways to convey your brand on LinkedIn beyond your profile, but we'll stick with your profile for now. And we've all sat through all these trainings on LinkedIn profiles, but did you listen to them? Right. So I say it's like a 401k. You have to invest in it. I pay it. I go on LinkedIn every day, all the time. And I'm always trying to see what other people are doing. So that's an important point. Look at
Yeah.
what other people are doing that catches your eye. So even though I'm not a millennial, when I saw emojis, I'm like, ooh, how do I get an emoji in my, and I got to be not too much emojis, but just little things like that really make an impact. And so we don't want to read off the slides too much, but I think some of these are incredibly important. One is the powerful headline. And so I actually change mine often just because it really drives the search. And so sometimes you want to have things like, if you're a CFO, you might want to put that in there, but you want to put something else that communicates your value. So Mike, what are your thoughts on the headline piece?
Well, I think it's you did it there, and I think let's talk about what a powerful headline is.
Yeah.
Don't put on there, "Hi, I'm a great treasury professional." So what? Really? Oh God, shut up. What we need on there is it's your positioning statement. It's about what you stand for. I've done this in my sessions and my speeches, and I said, right, how many guys have got in your powerful headline, you do cash management? And a load of hands go up. Foreign exchange, hands
Right.
go up. I'm like, really? I said, differentiate yourself. What have you done? And it might be you've won an award, so you can be award winning. What have you won it for? Well, it's for straight through processing and saving my company $1 million. Oh, hang on. Whoa, we're getting into something. Say something with your headline. Try and be inventive with it without being too kooky. Just like get it out there to make someone want to connect with you. It also means Again, when then you go into your summary section of step 2, the two things are different. So award-winning global treasurer, brilliant. Instead of, cash management expert, really, how many people in your network of 2,000 are also cash management experts? 1,999 probably. So avoid genericism. Just get something that's actually individual to you.
Right. And then you can actually see how many times you have come up in searches on a weekly basis. And so that's where I kind of tweak my verbiage a little bit if I see I'm going up or going down or I'm stale. Also want to talk about the summary. My summary is a little bit unique because I got a recommendation from someone that I thought just captured what I try and convey in my brand perfectly. Like basically in a very flattering manner, said Ernie is a pretty smart guy, but he's so humorous and he cares about us and our staff and our success. And I put that in my headline. And I guarantee when someone reads that, they're like, that's me. And Mike says, you can't do that in about
I love it.
50 words. I mean, that is who I am, to who I'm trying to be. And so you got to think a little bit out of the box sometimes on that.
Well, that relates directly to number 10 as well, about recommendations.
Yeah.
Because that's one of the things, testimonials, recommendations. And again, I do this, Skip, with the audience. I say to people, and you mentioned about Jeff Bezos earlier, and this relates directly to it. So let's do the summary shine. Bring out what those achievements, bring out what you've done to make a difference where you are. So that makes you stand out. When it then also, hand in hand, it goes with step 10 about asking for recommendations. And I say to people in the room, I say, look, have anybody ever bought anything from that little known website called Amazon? And hands up, boom. And I say to the audience, I say, right, can I check if any of you, I know they're trying to stop this fake reviews and everything else, but can anybody tell me if you've ever looked at the fake, the real reviews and looked at the star ratings? And they all go, boom, lovely. Because they say, oh, should I bother to have recommendations? So hands, I said, great. Could you tell me if you've met that person? And they're like, what? I said, but keep your hand up if you met that person. All the hands dropped down.
Yeah.
I said, and you lot tell me that recommendations don't work. And they're like, oh. I said, yeah, because you want to trust like-minded people. And the fact is, the great thing with the recommendation is it will have a really great name by the side of it. I've actually been pushing a lot harder actually on recommendations myself, because I've been really lax at that. And actually, I love your idea. I might actually steal it totally from Ernie and put some of those recommendations actually into my summary, because it makes us different. And that's what I want to do. I want to stand out. And I think that's a great way.
Yeah. On recommendations, they have, like you said, they have those skills. They tried to push up the skills endorsement thing on your profile. I don't like that. So I recommend when someone wants you to, I think it's kind of gone away. Everybody was saying I could like split the atom and stuff. And I'm like, you know what I mean? They get carried away. So like Mike said, here's my advice for recommendations. And you also have to look at how many you get versus how many you've given. So if you look at mine, I've been just blessed. So I have probably more than 3 times as many that I've gotten that I've given, because I don't give them away like candy, because they have to mean something. And so here's the cat's meow. Someone that worked with you, someone that worked for you, someone that worked above you, and then one of your suppliers or whatever those might be. So I actually had the opportunity myself to have full-time employment like last year and this year for a few months. And she's like, okay, I want to talk to some of the people you work with, like your suppliers. And this goes to later on our presentation. And she goes, you should be amazed. You have amazing relationships with your suppliers or your clients. I'm like, well, that's because that's my brand, right? I choose who I associate with, and it has to be a relationship. And even on LinkedIn, you don't want to be transactional, right? You want to invest in a relationship. So you're touching on that, right? Nurture your network. And as we have up here, become a writer. So you can convey what we like to call thought leadership in your profile. So people will look at that speaks to your power to communicate, but also your thirst for learning. So like Mike says, be a groupie, right? Be in the groups. You can show, when I look at someone's profile, I bet you I can do a pretty good job. If you do it right, I can read you, right? I know who you are, but I can also say this, which is worse. I can't really tell, if you like to learn. I can't really tell if you like to connect, so it can say a lot about you, but not investing in it can also say, can get you thrown out of consideration. So
Just on that step 8, I say about nurturing your network.
yeah,
One thing I want to say, this is the virtual world, you with your virtual LinkedIn profile and everything else. There's actually a way you can blend the both with nurturing your network. And I've talked about this in the past that Chris, one of my connections, who's now become a CFO as well. But one of the key things and learnings I got from him, if you like, I've done it myself, where I'll collect a business card from someone at a conference. I'll go back home to the office, but what he actually did, which was brilliant, after each of the meetings, he'd meet with someone and things, he'd make a note on someone's business card of, oh, it's their daughter's birthday coming up. They're going to do this. So it was something personal about them. And when he went back, he would then connect to people and expand his network in the real world, bring it back online, and then would get to know people. This actually led to him being headhunted to this CFO position for a prestigious New York law firm. Why? Because he had this amazing network. He wasn't looking for a job, just as we talked about earlier. He was part of the hidden network where he said, well, I'm not looking for a job. They said, no, but we love you. And oh, okay. And he was just exactly right for them. But he did that by doing step 8. So use both. So don't just see it standalone as the virtual world.
Right. Just real quick to add on that. Once we get back to live conferences, I tell
yeah.
my clients, when your people are in the booth, right, make sure the first thing you do is you send someone a LinkedIn connection and mention the conversation that you had, and make that connection, because we still have stacks of business card, and I should be ashamed of myself. I'm not connected. I haven't spoken with them. I have I didn't follow up on those, and I lost opportunities. I lost probably part of your career, right? So you have to look at it as, okay, this isn't fun to go on LinkedIn every single day and do these things, but every day you have to allocate some time to yourself and your career success. So we kind of jump to the I don't know, to my favorite part, the online part. So let's get back to and this, I think, is a little bit different. So I'm pleased that I've put some thought to paper on this. Building your brand at work. And so the foundation of your brand, which is good, it goes across everything, your work, your colleagues, right? And I actually did a presentation for my alma mater, Purdue, and this was a group of kids that were seniors. And so these guys are sitting there, and I said, if you think your brand isn't on display right now, you're mistaken. If you sit there in class and you don't pay attention, and if you're speaking to me, if you're not paying attention to me, you might be missing out on an opportunity. So I suggest next time, I called people out in the audience. I go, you're on your phone. What's your name? I'm going to write it down. Do you think you're ever getting a job? So those are hard lessons learned. But these are from my experience in basing my career success on how I've been able to build my brand, is you have to know what you know. What do I mean by that? If you're an expert on something, then don't be afraid to talk about it. But more importantly, know what you don't know. So don't step your tail off the deep end too far and get caught in a conversation where you're a little bit. So I have a big ego. However, most people will tell you, if I don't know something, I'm going to tell you right out of the gate, right? I don't know that, and I have to be thirsty for learn. This is probably the most important one to me. You have to let people get to know you, right? And Mike is amazing at that as well. So Mike and I are pretty successful people, but Mike and I are very approachable, and Mike's not afraid to let me get to know him a little bit. And I'm not afraid, because that builds that connection. And now it's almost like I want to find ways to work with Mike, because first of all, Mike's really good at his job, but Mike's just a fun person, right? And I get along with Mike. So that's something that's important. And then you need to communicate what you need to know. And then Mike and I talked about this, actively collaborate. Mike, do any of these points or any color you want to add here?
Yeah, I think the key thing is when you're talking to someone, when you're listening to them, I know it's absolutely, as we call it in England, knackering. If you're being an active listener, if you're actually listening to the words that someone's saying, I'm doing it all day, and I'll literally come out of the conference, and I'll just lay down in my room and just want to stop talking or stop listening just for 5 minutes, because I'm talking to someone, not with something in mind. I'm listening to them. They're telling me about their career and everything else. I'm wanting to find out how I can help them. If I can't, I'll tell them. If I can, I will, and I'll try and do that. But one of the things I think a lot of the time people make a mistake is they will listen to someone and they will have in mind their own story, and they won't actually listen to the other person's point of view, and actually listen to the other person and get to know them and really take it to the next level. You can, Ernie and I have had, known each other for many years and developed that friendship. But it's been, when I first ever met Ernie, there's this guy in this kooky, crazy coat and sports jacket. And I'm thinking, really? Quite a different style to mine. But that's because, well, they broke the style stick with Ernie. You can see this. Look at this. They hit him with that magic wand. But joking aside, my clients wanted, want something different. Everyone remembers Ernie, and I like to be remembered as well. But I think the key thing is to sort of be open to that listening, rather than trying to tell your story all the time. You've just described it really well there, Ernie, that you're getting to know people, but actually being an active listener. I think that's one of the key things.
Right. Thanks. And then, so just, and then I want to say that some of these things seem like common sense, but that's why I have a job, because I talk about things that are common sense, but it makes you think about it. Right. And so when you think about it, it becomes part of your natural way of doing things. So we mentioned this on your colleagues, get to know your colleagues. And that goes to it, those that work with you. Right. So do you really know the person that works with you? I think one of the good things about a little bit of a good thing about the coronavirus is we've all had Zoom, and some people we can see into their living rooms, and we laugh a little bit more. Everyone's dog's barking. And so I think we've had to go out of our comfort zones a little bit. And then you need to understand the value of your relationship to your colleagues. You want this to be a mutually beneficial street. And so sometimes I'm getting ahead of myself, but sometimes you need to ask them, hey, if you ask someone, and what are the 3 things that bother you most about your job? Boy, everyone will be, and then you digest that. And then going forward, you figure out ways you can help them and offer value. So again, and then also this is more important at work rather than personal and maybe your peers. Communicate your expectations, right? So let them know what you expect and what to expect from you. So I actually have people that are email junkies, and I tell people straight up, I'm like, if you have a issue or want to, please call me on the phone. I don't want emails. That's just not the way I operate. So don't be afraid to communicate your expectations and let them know. Maybe I don't like to use email, right? Can you call me? Or I don't like to use Zoom. And so again, perception is reality. And I've learned that the hard way in relationships and in work. So make sure that your perception doesn't get too far away from that reality there. So
perfect.
And then Mike mentioned this as well. And I am not good at this, but I always try listen. I've actually attended seminars. Mike says you should attend a year-long seminar for listening, but someday, Mike. But it's incredibly powerful. Again, learn the professional languages of your colleagues. So marketing and sales, they may have a different language if you're in finance or treasury. So show them that you've made a commitment. Right? Maybe I'll go listen to a webinar on AI, and then my IT guy, I'll say, hey, AI, he'll look at me like, well, that's pretty cool. You know about AI. And then when you need something from IT, guess what? If you go talk to John, hey, that guy, he knows his stuff. So just, you have to think about these things. Again, these seems like common sense. Ask people what their challenge is, help them solve it. And as Mike said, be authentic, right? Mike is unique in his own way. Mike doesn't have to have an obnoxious suit on, because that wouldn't be authentic, right? For Mike, it's authentic for me. So we have to get out of our comfort zone, but we have to be authentic. And this is incredibly delicate, and you have to grow this muscle, but you have to, the really nirvana is build trust with your colleagues so they have no fear in communicating bad news to you. So be careful. If you have feedback to give, let's make it positive. You should never yell. If you have something, take the person aside, take them in your office. Your brand is always on display. If you're known as a yeller, you don't tolerate mistakes, that is going to bite you. So that's one thing that I think is important.
I think that there are 2 points there that I'd make. Certainly that, and it's not just a sales pitch for us, but it's a different thing that, compared to our competition, if you like, I believe in authenticity. You know, people actually had really lovely comment from a lady yesterday. She said, Mike, I really like the videos you do. I like the way, she said, because you're quite funny. You're just not, I don't want to be 100% professional all the time. As you said at the start of the show, everyone's Zoom bored, doing this and stuff like that. And I know I'm here. Obviously, as you can see, I'm not in the city of London. This is a backdrop and everything else, but you don't want to see the mess that's behind me. But there's, be authentic and telling you exactly what, the news is. It's interesting then you talk about communicating bad news. I literally had to let down a candidate less than half an hour ago before the show started about a role that he's been through 2 or 3 rounds with me. And he's a fantastic guy. He's not quite got enough experience, but he literally 10, 15 minutes later, sent me this wonderful email saying, really want to thank you for the, he put trust in us. We gave him the bad news, but we gave it to him in an adult manner. And it was really disappointing. But the fact is that they will consider him as a client. My client rather will still consider him going forward. If they have a more junior role, they would love him to come on board because he's not quite there yet. And I think it was just having the respect. So it's that, treat people with the respect that you want to be treated with. And I think the fact that as soon as anyone drops that in recruitment, then they should just get out because, I've done it 20 plus years. And I think it's just, I always do it as, how I would like to be treated. I'd like someone to call me. Yeah, it's bad news, Mike. We're not going forward with you because this. Okay, you can build on it for the future. And I don't want that just to be a sales pitch. I just think it's then the same at work. We've had some challenges recently with one of our clients, and there was a breakdown in communications, exactly that. And I had to then feed it back to my colleague Simon. I laid it out to him. I said, yeah, we've had a pretty couple of terrible days, but we're going to have better days from here on. And I think that's the key thing, that then you build the trust. And that's the, that just, it's like in that trust bank, isn't it? So
yeah, it gets back to the relationships, and that's where you got to be very careful. In really, recruiting done right helps you manage your career. So it's a relationship, right? So you have to support people. So people like Mike will support you, whether you're an analyst or a treasurer, and you're not going to get that. You're going to get transactional. Ooh, I want to place you. I'll take my $20,000 and I'll see you later. I don't care what you do. I wouldn't talk to you on the street again. I'm on to the next, it's almost a volume game. And so finding someone that invests in your career, right, and knows you and will actively reach out to you, that is incredibly powerful. So I know it's easy to sometimes say, hey, this guy seems like he's a good recruiter, but look at it through a lens of a relationship, and don't be transactional on your side either as a job seeker, because things change, right? And Mike and I already touched on some of these things. So not to be, but you need to build your brand with your business partners. Mike talked about this, right? Mike just went through a great example. Again, communicate what you know. I think here, letting people get to know you, right, is important. And with COVID, communicate your expectations. So I think we need to align more. So if things have changed, right, from COVID or your business or your life, you need to communicate those. I can't really do this anymore. However, in a few months, I'll be able to do this. This isn't also especially important today on the treasury side, right? Maybe your customers, reach out to your customers if they can't pay, right? Okay, it's a relationship. Relationships are really forged during times of crisis, really, in all honesty. And so when everybody's happy and anyone can be, seem like they're a good friend or a good relationship. But when you go through something together, that's when it really matters. So again, let's pivot a little bit. Again, building your brand with your peers. Again, I'm very repetitive because I think the stuff is incredibly important. A lot of the same things. So this is what I want to get to. And this webinar might be really long, but I don't care because everyone will stay on for 2 hours. So this is incredibly important. People say build your network. How many people tell you how to do it, right? I never have seen a webinar where they tell me how to do it. But I love these 5 things, Mike. I think I'm pretty nifty sometimes. So who do you want to know, right, in your career? Who do you need to know, right? And that goes back to who do you want to know and need to know at work, right, with your business partners and your peers. So I put it here, but You should be thinking about this everywhere. And who do you
Mm.
already know? So a lot of times we don't have a concept of, like Mike said, if I look through my business cards, wow, I forgot, I really have some powerful connections. It doesn't matter, right? Are you adding value to them? Are they adding value to you? And then if you're not that outgoing, who knows who you want to know, right? Who's out there on LinkedIn? People all the time with me. I love it. Hey, Ernie, do you know XYZ? You're connected across the web. And who knows, more importantly, who knows who you need to know? So there's movers and shakers at work. So yeah, go ahead, Mike.
Ernie, what you said about value, I think that let's get a real focus in on that. What value can you add to people? Now,
Yeah.
people are going to be watching this webinar today and they go, hang on, that's Ernie, the sales guy. He's doing this. He's got
Yeah.
webinars. That's Mike, the recruiter and stuff. And they go, well, hang on, I'm a treasury professional. How do I do this? It's a bit out of my comfort zone. Well, number one, yeah, get out of your comfort zone, because if you just sit there and don't build your network, you're never going to go anywhere. You'll just sit in the same job for the next 5 to 10 years and just get left behind. You need to actively network. And I think that's it's a learned skill, just as Ernie's saying there. But when you're wanting to provide value, one of the key things I say, going back to the LinkedIn profile, let's just use that as an example. What we just, we put up examples of some of the work we do. I put up a thing called the 4 Ps, which is about showing clients how to retain their team. 3 of the steps were about showing clients how to retain their teams. The last piece, I said, well, if you've got it really wrong, then you're going to have to recruit a new person. And people afterwards said they really enjoyed the presentation because I wasn't going on about recruitment. And actually, so bringing this back to you guys as treasurers, you do value laden things every day. So you look at a new cash management scenario or setup or something like that. Now you can put that presentation online. And then when you're wanting to expand your network, there'll be other people either coming to you saying, oh, I saw you did that. We're looking at doing a similar project. Could I join your network? Could I be part? So that's the inbound stuff. Then there's the outbound stuff that you're going to get to know some of those partners, cash management people, or you might be the other way around, that you might see somebody else has done a similar project. Say, look, I've recently done this. This is on my profile. Could I connect with you? I'd just like to ask you a couple of questions. And actually, I heard a really good podcast this week. I listened to a guy called Mark Williams, Mr. LinkedIn. Maybe put his details in your show notes. He's a great guy to know, Ernie, for people listening. And there was a US lady. She was talking about getting sort of recommended to talk to someone. And I was like, even I felt a bit uncomfortable. But then when she explained it, and it was actually, look, I've heard that you have expertise in this area. I'm trying to build my network in that area because I want, and if it's done with a reason in mind, then people are much more open. People want to help people. If you're just doing it with just want to build a full sales network, good luck to you. But that's not what this is about. This is about building genuine, long-term, value-laden relationships, basically.
Yeah, Mike, great point. And so, yeah, just to get back to a little bit of the how. So,
Yeah.
especially on the organic side, one of the things way back on the profile said, be a writer. Every treasury person, so much more than you think you know. And I had people reach out to me all the time, and I love it. They ask me, hey, how do I write an article? Will you read this for me? And so I really encourage people in that. That's really organic. As Mike said, people will start reaching out to you. So, like Mike said, if you've implemented a TMS system, maybe you've had to work with AP and AR and you've, had a success, or you about AI and RPA and you really get into that, and you might want to share that. And so sharing that's incredible. And at work as well. I have whole presentations on how to collaborate within and beyond Treasury. So like if you're in Treasury and AP might not report up to you. Well, let's go over to, you watched a lot of webinars on AP. Hey, what are we doing with automation? Hey, this was really cool, and show them that, hey, I really understand that. Oh, you know what? We all win when the cash conversion cycle goes better. And so absolutely, that's about showing. So if you want to know how to, add value to anybody, just please reach out to me, because I have content for Treasury specifically. If you're in Treasury and finance, how do you engage with sales? How do you engage with marketing? How do you engage with ops? How do you engage? And so that's all, a part of it. And as Mike said, for your peers, it's all about your brand, right? Speak at AFP events, speak on podcasts, speak it and get your brand out there. And if you think you don't know anything, I encourage you to call Mike, and I bet you by the time you're off the phone, you'll be probably
Be
right. You're a
thankful.
rock star. You just don't
Yeah.
know it yet. Right.
One of the ladies I know, Severin, she was a podcast guest as well. She I complained actually about her because we were talking, and what she does is, this is another way to build your network. She wanted to, so who do you want to know? Um, and what she wanted to know was they bring in Treasury interns, and she goes and volunteers like a couple of days a term at the local university, and she helps out on their treasury program and she will give input and things like that. And what it results in, I've just said to her, look, stop doing this, because she was bringing in her own treasury interns. People were engaging. She works for Honeywell, so people were coming and joining her. They wanted to engage in her network. It's horrendous for me as a recruiter. I was like, no, Severin, you need to stop this. This is I've got kids that need shoes. Please stop.
Yeah.
But it was fantastic. And I actually, joking aside, that she decided who she wanted. She went out there and got those people and got them into her network. And, she was a treasurer. She didn't need to do that. But what she did, she took proactive action. I think that's the thing. It's about being an action taker as well, which I know you do, Ernie. So.
Just to dovetail on that a little bit. Yeah. So I love Purdue University. And I'm on the board of directors for the Purdue Alumni Association. So I'm on the board. So that we have 650,000 people in Purdue network. So I guess what? If I have a webinar and there's treasury people, I bet a few treasury people went to Purdue. I think a few CFOs went to Purdue. So you have to be thinking about your network building is sometimes it's not a direct line. So that's what we talk about here, right? How do we build it, right? Social events, it can be church, anything, your kids' sports. I mean, you never know. It starts out, and if you have a connection, right, you might take that onto LinkedIn. Professional conferences, professional associations. We talked about all these in the alumni networks. And so you have to be kind of, your switch has to be on, right? Kind of all the time. I guess that's what I would add there.
And, I'm going to say podcasts. I love it. I've been doing it now for just over 2 years. We're at approaching 60,000 downloads over the 2 years. It's just incredible. But all it was born out of a conversation that I wanted to share the stories of the treasurers that are watching today and treasury professionals. And go to the treasurycareercorner.com. It's, and you'll get there 120 plus, 130 plus stories now by the time this comes out of treasurers and treasury professionals and their careers and what they've done and why they're interesting and stuff. And it's a twofold thing. Firstly, you can educate yourselves, you can increase your network, you might actually listen to that. And as we said, you might want to reach out. I heard the podcast with Mike the other day, love to have you as part of the network via LinkedIn. And then you bump into the person at the next professional conference. So it's in all way, it's an incredible opportunity. And, it's just not an advert fest because it's a non-commercial thing as such. It's, I want people to really connect, and you treasurers out there have incredible stories to tell. So it's lovely.
Yeah. And say along the same lines on building that network. So if you go to a conference and you like a speaker or an article on LinkedIn, you just reach out and say, hey, I liked your article. I guess what, if you send them a LinkedIn connection, they're going to accept it. Sorry. Everyone like me, everyone has their ego. If you give someone an ego boost, they're going to respond. That's just, that's the way it works. And so it has to be authentic, and it will be, oh, your podcast was really interesting. And then they'll respond back. Yeah, I had fun with Mike. And then that's, it just takes off.
Yeah.
All right. We talked about some of these things, how to manage it. And this is what, you don't get a lot in content. Ask how you can help your connection. So I always start out, thank you for accepting my connection. Please let me know how I can help you. And sometimes I'll offer. Stay tuned to what your connections need. So, just see what's going on. Maybe someone's talking about a TMS. Maybe you think that, especially if they've been through a transition or you see they lost their job, but you talk about a powerful connection. And then we don't want to take business away from Mike, but I usually send folks to Mike. You help somebody get a job. Wow. You talk about the greatest evangelist for your life, and it's usually people you don't expect. So, be generous with your time. And we don't want to be inauthentic. Don't click happy anniversary when you work at work, but you should support accomplishments. And then it's hard, but you have to like not let the relationship momentum come to a halt. So that's takes time and
Yeah.
investment, but you almost have to prioritize, who do I need to know? Who do I need to stay connected with? Right. And that can change, but you have to take out, and sometimes you have to just have your ear to the grindstone. When an opportunity comes, you have to take advantage of it.
Well,
So
look, a lot of the time as well, I give a lot of these, just like Ernie, go and give a lot of speeches and things like that. A lot of mine are obviously talent related or people related, and things like this about your professional networking. One of the ones that I wrap up a lot of my speeches with is a guy called Sir Dave Brailsford, and he ran the British cycling team. And prior to him doing it, people wouldn't even let them ride their bikes because they thought it was going to affect sales. They were like, the UK cyclists were so bad. They went, oh my God, we're not even going to let them. And the reason it relates to this is what he did was when he came in and then made them tremendously successful. He did all these little things, and that's what I think the people today need to do. To keep the momentum up. What he didn't do was do this massive changes and things like that. He took pillows with them, so that people got a perfect night's sleep. He had heated shorts so that people had the right temperature of muscles. He did all these little things all the way through. And what they did was, tremendous success. But that's what I say to people at the end of it, because a lot of the time people today will go, oh, go on my LinkedIn. Oh, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And that quickly peters out. The momentum goes. And as you say, don't let momentum come to a halt, but don't do it all at once. Just do it once. So if you reached out to one person every day, just one more person, just every day, you're going to grow your network over the course of the year by 500 plus. And maybe it's two people you reach out to. So you build your network by 1,000 people just by just doing one thing, one at lunchtime, one at the end, or a couple of people a week. Just build it. It'd be a great way to do it.
Yeah, no, that's amazing advice. People sometimes they feel overwhelmed, and so yeah, you just, oh, I haven't been doing this and I haven't spent enough time. And I always say, well, just take a little bite-sized chew, and then it's like anything else. You see success. Yeah, I have to say, you're a human being. When someone accepts my request, I kind of, yeah, good. That makes me feel good, and so you'll get there at your own speed, right? So this is how to do it, right? And this part is really about organic. So your brand will become organic and become better as you do these things, and it'll just happen. Speak at events when we can do that. Attend the networking events. Speak on webinars and promote them on your profile. Hey, I'm speaking here. Speak on podcasts, promote them. I'm on this podcast with Mike, and that builds your brand within all the tens of thousands of people that listen to Mike's podcast. And then I was going to start this community, so we don't have to pay attention to that. LinkedIn, but direct posts, right? Post on LinkedIn, get your feet wet. Articles, I don't think they work quite as well anymore. Blogs still work, and then comment on posts. That's a good place to get your feet wet.
Definitely.
Maybe you're a little bit tepid. Well, so just add a little slice. Don't get too controversial out of the gate, but just post a comment and then you'll start a conversation, but then people will see that you're active. So if people see you're active, then that communicates as well. So as we're having the longest webinar ever, but I love it. I could go like another 5 hours easy. But recommendations for actions. It's not only the cash conversion cycle, but that's my brand. That's not even the right slide. So we'll have to cut that thing out. So Mike, let's just kind of put, a fine point on some things. So let's say that we have, I don't know, 20 or 30,000 people on this webinar here. So give us your top 3 things for people to take ownership of their career.
I think the first thing is to take ownership of your career. You own that career. And I think a lot of people are just sitting there in neutral. They're just cruising along. Oh yeah, it's all right. I'll keep doing my job, particularly, given COVID and everything else. I think a lot of people, this has been a really tough time, and it's been really difficult for me to network throughout that time. Yes, so what? Guess what? Everybody else has done it. Everybody else is in the same boat. But if you just sit back and let it happen, then nothing's going to happen. It's just going to be, you're just spinning your wheels. Oh, dude. The fact is, if you want to go forward, then you need to take ownership of it. And that can be, going back to the Treasury Skills Wheel. That can be looking at qualifications. That can be, actually, I need to get on a stage. So it's sort of plucking out any of the bits from today's conversation and saying, right, and just writing down, exactly as we talked about just towards the end there, 1, 2, or 3 things that you can do differently this week. And what can you do the week after? And what can you do the week after that? And it's that cumulative effect of just making little changes that are going to make a massive difference. I think if you just sit there and just go, just let somebody else do it, or I just do my job and everything else, then great, you're going to get paid. But then when you come up to me and say, Mike, I'm looking for a pay rise, and I say, right, what differences have you achieved where you are in the past 2-3 years? I haven't done anything really. I've just done my job. Just doing your job isn't good enough. If you do your job, that's fine. You'll get paid. You'll go home. You won't get any advancement. You'll just be recognized, hopefully. But what you need to do is go to your boss and say, right, what are you looking for me to achieve this year? This week, this month, this quarter, this year. And if you go and do those, then you can't fail to get some success, because you're going to help them get ahead and they'll help you get ahead. So it's a sort of partnership thing. Sorry, there's about 4 or 5 points in there, but I think it was important that, I've seen so many people, I've spoken about it a couple of times, but probably more, I own it a bit more now, that where I see so many people just letting it drift along. They're sitting in neutral, and it's, COVID hasn't helped, but now we're coming out of it. So crack on and, let's move to the future.
Right. And from my side, just a dovetail, for my end of it is, I always try and make it simple. And for your career success, right? Where are you at right now? Right? Where do you want to get to? And what's it going to take to get you there? And I guarantee, to get you there, you're going to have to own your brand and your network and optimize those, and your image. And you have to learn to become your own greatest cheerleader. Don't go too far about it, but a lot of people have a mindset. You have to toot your own horn once in a while, because no one's going to do it for you. And so take ownership of that brand and take ownership of your career. So Mike, thank you so much for taking the time to spend with us today. I think we've had incredibly insightful conversation. I wish I could have listened to this webinar way back in my treasury career, but my pain is your gain. So, and I really encourage everyone to go to the Treasury Recruitment website. Mike has some just amazing resources, especially during COVID. Mike offers a lot of great content as a courtesy to serving the Treasury profession. And so I want to thank you, Mike, for all that you do for the Treasury profession. So thank you, Mike. We appreciate that.
I'm right back at you, Ernie. I think, the stuff you're giving, you've got here on the screen, the forum that we're doing next year as well. Can't wait to be part of it. Great feedback from this last year's just gone. It was great fun. And again, it's just about adding value, just by doing that. If you give without expecting to receive back, the fact is it comes back to you in bundles, but just go out there and try and help you guys in Treasury. So it's an absolute pleasure. And thank you, sir.
All right. And thank you so much, everyone, for taking the time to listen to our webinar today. We value each and every one of you, and make the rest of your day great, everyone.